Moving on from the abomination known as Devil May Cry 2, I'm checking out Swordmaster on the NES. It's an interesting game from a company known as Athena. I've never heard of them before, and when I looked up the list of games they developed, I didn't recognize many of them. Oh well. Swordmaster is a side-scrolling action game with a few RPG and platforming elements. But before I move on to that, let's check out this title screen. It already shows promise. It starts out as a hollow logo, but then you see it get a neat fire effect inside of it. Very cool. You press start, and you see a Ninja Gaiden style cinematic of the main character approaching a castle. If I hadn't seen it in Ninja Gaiden, I would have been impressed. The game then officially starts. Your character's simple task is to move from the left to the right of the screen, dispatching enemies and engaging the mini-bosses. It may sound simple, but it's far from it. First, the controls. You can press A to jump and B to attack, and there's a variety of ways to do so. If you press up and B, the knight will do an overhead slash as opposed to his normal swipe. You can also attack while crouched. Again, very simple to learn. You can also move while crouched, although slowly. However, by doing so, you'll block any projectiles that are getting flung at you. Similarly, you can hold up to block while standing, but this will only block airborne projectiles, like the rain that the wizard summons. You probably won't use this very often. These blocking moves don't seem to give any sort of protection against regular attacks as well, which is kind of confusing. How can a shield block magic but not a physical sword? I will never understand this. In addition, you do have access to a double jump. Sometimes. It's supposedly activated by pressing the A button twice in succession, but I haven't been able to consistently do this. Thankfully, it's not needed often, but later on in the game I found spots where it would have helped a lot more if I would have been able to perform it. I could be smashing the A button, yet the double jump never occurs. In addition, when you do manage to double jump, you'll see that the height boost really isn't much. It would have been nice to have this a bit more consistent and useful. Now back to the gameplay. There's not a lot of platforming in the first few levels, so it's primarily just fighting. As you defeat enemies, you'll gain a bit of experience. After leveling up, your knight's life meter will expand, which is welcome because this game is not easy. The main enemies aren't so bad, but the challenge lies within the mini-bosses and bosses of the game. Every once in a while, the screen will stop scrolling and you'll meet up with a mini-boss. These characters will replace your XP meter with a life meter, so you'll know how close to dead they are. They will often have much higher AI than your basic enemies, and will be aggressive in attacking, yet defensive enough to block your strikes. To further compound these boss fights, life power-ups are rare, and only restore about 1 health bar. Anyway, the bosses. They start off easy enough. In the forest you deal with a skeleton with a sword, and then move on to a giant troll with a club, who tends to be a bit easier. After another skeleton you'll meet up with your first wizard, which can be nearly impossible until you learn to block his magical strikes. Once you figure out the wizard's patterns, it's not too difficult. In fact, the challenge doesn't really pick up until the boss of the second stage. It's a knight dressed completely in black, ambushing you by coming out of a nearby house. Again, very cool. This bastard will parry almost all of your strikes, and will also leap in towards you to attack before jumping backwards to evade. It's pretty much a crapshoot on whether you will defeat this guy at first, because chances are your health is just way too low to put up a fair fight. Instead, you'll probably have to die a few times just to grind out an extra level or two. I found the only reliable way to actually hit this guy is to jump in and slash while you're airborne, then jump backwards again. What's more, you have to fight this guy several more times in the third stage, and probably again in further ones. Truth be told, I can't finish the 4th level. It's where there's a ton of platforming to perform, and of course when you get hit, your character gets knocked backwards in traditional douchebaggery fashion. With the cliffs evident, getting a one-hit knockout is a much higher risk than just simply taking damage. It wouldn't be so bad, but the dragons will seek you out after performing a loop on their track. In addition, these eyeballs that float around are invulnerable. Sure, you can hit them repeatedly, but they'll always just float back into their standard pattern. I have noticed that if you get damaged a few times by them, they'll fly forward, allowing you to pass. It's almost as if there's a better chance to let yourself take damage than to suffer an instant death. In addition, there's no lives. Instead, the game takes a 1 life and 5 continues approach. As such, there's no way to earn additional continues. Supposedly there's a cheat where you can hold down and select and press start to earn infinite continues, but I haven't actually seen it work. Additionally, there's supposedly a level warp where you hold up and select and press start, but again, that didn't work either. Maybe I'm just putting these in the wrong spot? I don't know. The only other thing to really mention is that after the 2nd level, you get access to a wand. This staff allows you to press select to switch to a wizard yourself. This may sound badass, but check out the range on these fireballs. That's right, the fireballs just go as far as your sword, which just begs the question, why bother? Even after leveling up, you're still restricted to the same range. This is a baffling design decision. I get that by using the wizard, you may have made the game a bit easier, but they could have overcome that by making him a bit more fragile due to a lack of armor. And considering that you only get this before level 3, and level 3 is primarily a boss rush, you think that maybe using the wizard would be your best option. But the level boss shoots fireballs at you, so you don't want to use the mage because he can't block. Also, when you do manage to defeat that pain in the ass, you get access to what looks like a fireball. Yet, I couldn't figure out for the life of me how to use it, effectively rendering the wizard nearly useless. Because I was only able to reach the midway point of level 4, that's all I got for Sword Mastery. Yes, it may be challenging, but it's still a fun game. The music is catchy and the graphics are gritty. The control is smooth, well, other than the double jumping, and the enemy boss fights are entertaining, if not frustrating. I just wish there was a better way to evade enemy strikes as opposed to constantly jumping away from your enemy. It's definitely worth a play to check out the style, but it may not be something that keeps your interest for long. Final score? 7 out of 10. This is Reaper, Facebook.com/ReapersReviews. Happy fragging.